simple step. And with this simple step, I've kind of ghosted it out. We're just going to do a cube that's like tilted towards us. And that cube that is tilted towards us, it's we kind of see some of the top plane. Really, really simple. It doesn't get more basic than this. And now I'm going to work into this with my pieces of tape. So that roughly is the eyebrow line, like let's say like roughly right there. That's the base of the nose right here. That right there is the top of the lip, that's the bottom lip. I'm probably gonna need to buy myself some more space down here, but I've made an allowance for that. So now I go into what I call the tilted sunglasses. Really trying my best to not think of the skull as being incredibly complicated, but trying to reduce every shape to just like almost like a symbol. So there is the triangle chopped of the nose. Here is the top of the teeth, the bottom of the teeth. I'm glad I gave myself a little bit more room because I'm going to take it. I'm going to go down to here. Now I can erase away some of those early searching lines, like the tape lines. And I have some like, just like general scramble in here. I'm gonna erase that away. And I roughly have everything mapped out. I'm gonna do something a little bit different this time. I'm gonna shade in the eye socket a little bit and the nasal cavity. So that you get the feeling of the skull as we're working on it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like bring in some new elements. Because this is such a refreshingly simple position, we can get into like how the eye socket like kind of like connects to the sphere of the skull. And so there are these protuberances right here. And again, I've said this so many times, that I don't use technical terminology early on. I'm just going to say eye socket at this point. And it kind of like turns like so. And then we have the bottom of the cheekbone right here. And it turns like so. Now you can jump over to the teeth. And for the teeth, you can just put in the symbol of like a few of these smaller teeth. And we can, if you want, we can now even move beyond. Remember up here how we kind of like mapped out how the teeth come forward? Let's map out how those teeth go forward right here. And they turn and they're rounded and they go into space. We don't really have the ability in this little schematic to go into that in great detail, but we can hint at how the jaw turns. The back part of the jaw. So the back part of the jaw is just going to turn kind of like so. And then if we chop away, you can kind of see the dimensionality of this forming. So I intentionally kept these right here very pared down and simple, but now you can see how you can take this whole idea and you can keep chopping away at things in order to arrive at like something with like startling accuracy, like even like scientific accuracy. So I have all of these drawings in a more developed form that I'm uploading with these videos. And you're going to then see me take this concept and place it into a highly developed rendering. So now I'm going to erase this away. And I have there roughly mapped out like what for me serves as a really nice geometric essence rendering of the skull. Very, very simplified, intentionally very, very basic. So now as I jump in with the longer pose, you'll see that I'm returning to all the same basic elements. Just mapping out the external contour, getting the top of the head, the bottom of the chin, obvious things. And then I start mapping out the width, I'm mindful that all these things might be moving around a lot. So, as ever, I just keep my opening marks just really brushy and atmospheric. And what I like about that is I know that, like, let's say the width of these eye sockets, they're just going to go back and forth, and it's going to be easy to change. I'll give you kind of a funny story of when I was younger, a problem I had over and over again. I would dig in, I would commit to like an eyeball, and I would just render the daylights out of that thing. I mean, I would just have this like, I'd look at my eye in a mirror, and then I would draw the eyeball like in such high detail. And then it came time to draw the other eyeball, and other eye was in really incredible detail. And then I would step back and I'd look and I'd be like, oh goodness. And the eyes were just in absolute wrong spots and didn't match the nose that came later. And I would just get so angry. And then I came to study old master drawings. I also, simply put, just worked a lot on my own pieces. And in emulating the old master drawings and seeing them at their various stages, one of the things I just realized was that broad atmospheric kind of see the forest before the trees approach. It was going to save me a whole lot of heartache. So here I am with my broad atmospheric approach, knowing full well that things are going to move around and quite a bit. And I just really, I don't care so much if I have a lot of changes to, like, right now, the eyebrow line, there is the turning at the temple. These are things that don't bother me. If you'll notice, I've moved the cheekbone line like many times. It's part of my process. The exploratory element is just simply part of who I am as an artist and what I do, and I like that. It fills it takes the pressure out of drawing, and it instead fills me with a sense of like wonder. And there's something I've spoken about in previous lessons. It's the parallel to the music world and how this might be similar to what one does on stage, let's say, with performing music. And I heard this amazing fiddler who I talk about often in my classes, Martin Hayes, and what he said was, when he performs in front of people, he is not thinking of how to impress them. He's not thinking of how to technically dazzle them. He's not thinking of any of these, of perfection in the sense of, I'm going to give them this most stellar performance. But he says to himself, well, this melody here that I'm about to play, it's so beautiful. And if I can just pass that along in a way, if I can get out of the way of that melody and just let the melody be seen by them and heard by them, then that's the experience that the audience is here for. It's this transmission of this beautiful thing. And that really has its parallel to what we do in painting. If you can get out of your own way, and if you can, let's say you're drawing the skull and you say, well, it's not about me and dazzling my viewers with what a great draftsman I am, but I really like the way that the teeth, like, let's say I'm working on right now, like I like the way that they turn, and it's like a cool like jigsaw puzzle pattern to this right here. And as you just find yourself getting lost in a drawing, as you're delighting in it, as you lose yourself into the wonder of what you're drawing, then ironically you step back and you have a much nicer drawing than if you went in and you're like, I am gonna impress my viewers with my stunning anatomical knowledge. If you haven't gleaned something from other videos that I've shared, I'm really not impressed by stellar technique from artists. There are plenty of academies out there in the world, especially nowadays, where they churn out students that are brilliant technicians, and they can render something. They can really like draw, like, let's say in this instance, a skull, and they can just get the light hitting it, the reflected light and all the planes, and but they could also be devoid of any sense of wonder. They could also be devoid of any sense of actual appreciation of the aesthetic beauty of the thing that they're doing. And I never put that sense of awe and wonder on hold. I don't say to myself, okay, now it's time for me to draw a skull. And so I'm turning off the aesthetic end of this, of what I'm doing. And instead, I am going to just be accurate. I never do that. With every single study, such as of the skull here, I am always and ever doing the exact same thing. I'm looking at it and saying, hey, there's something really beautiful about this. Like, the eye socket has these deep fissures at the back, and those fissures must be where the optical nerve comes through. And it's amazing how the eyeball sits within the cavity right here. And I wonder how it's suspended within that cavity so that it is cushioned. And like, my mind the entire time is just filled with wonder. And I could even say like this is kind of like rapture. There's this bliss and this joy of just looking at the incredible design and saying to myself, and this as ever is my conviction, that we can use science to dig in deep, and we can explore, and we can ask questions and look at, come up with observations and theses, and we can use the evidence in front of our eyes. And all of those things for me just turn back to one thing, that there was a creator who created this. It's so central to everything that I draw. It's so central to everything that I create myself, that you can't extract the wonder that I have for the design from the artwork that I literally produce with my own hands. And so that's very much at work as I'm drawing the cheekbones, let's say on the left-hand side. It's just so amazing how they wrap around the side of the face, so that if accidentally you get smashed with the side of a car door when somebody opens it, well, your cheekbone has prevented your eye from totally collapsing. I mean, the engineering, again, it's absolutely magnificent. To think that we have the human brain, of which we know relatively so little, I think, compared to other aspects of our anatomy. But the human brain, encased in such a perfect shell, and one that's able to withstand, again, like impacts, and yet at the same time, all of this function results in something that is aesthetically really beautiful. And forgive me if I sound like I'm being melodramatic, but I'm being serious right now. I look at the beauty of my young daughter, who's 2.5 years old, and her face, when I look at her, she seems like she's not even from this world. There's this precious look in her eyes. And to think that all the biological functions that are taking place to just keep all of us alive and thinking and pumping our hearts at any minute, in any given minute. And yet the end result can be something that moves us with its beauty. And I know this is a drawing of a skull, and in a way someone could say, well, stick to the basics and just teach me how to draw this one thing. But I think that's a lost opportunity. I think with every single thing I draw, whatever it is, I can enter into it, almost as, I believe it's the poet John Keats says, that he enters into everything that he ever wrote about. He becomes a seashell on the seashore. He enters into the world that he's contemplating. And in the same way, we can do that when we're drawing the skull. The way that there are grooves set up already at the base of the nose that will eventually become the canals that receive the teeth. The design is just so incredible. So drawing for me it's exploratory, and it's an act of willed wonder, where I enter into something and I say, okay, I want to learn from this beautiful object in front of me, and how can I understand the mind of the maker behind it?